Yes, welcome back from our package of the day. I am a little bit slow, or should I say, not mentally, but just trying to be calm because I know how important the topic that we're going to discuss today is in the house. Now, if you started the program with us, you remember that I said Nigeria happens to have one of the highest statistics in terms of mother and child under five mortality in the world. The reason why it is important to identify the causes and understand them so we can at least find a solution to reducing the statistics of death in this bracket. Now, to discuss this topic, mother and child mortality, UNICEF worrying Nigeria's under five death statistics. We have our doctor in the house, who is Dr. Olubusayo Modupe, is a medical practitioner, is the director of health insurance schemes, State Specialist Hospital, Ondo City, Ondo State, project coordinator, HIV program, State Specialist Hospital, Ondo City, Ondo State. It's so nice to have you once again on this set on Daybreak Africa.
Thank you very much.
Welcome on Daybreak, Doctor.
Before we came on live, we're having a discussion, and I was asking, or rather telling you, that while I was doing the research, I had the shocker of my life to actually discover that Nigeria, the greatest black nation in the world, the most populous black nation in the world, the giant of Africa, a nation so blessed with natural and human resources would fall within that bracket with so much awareness that we have, with so much education that we have, with all the learning and medical practitioners that we have. We will fall into such a terrible statistics. From your point of view as a practitioner, one who is within the field, who grapples with the reality of the statistics, we would want to know from your point why we are within this bracket range.
Well, the truth is, not only maternal and not only even infant mortality, generally, the health sector, the nation should declare a state of emergency because everything is getting worse. The statistics, infant mortality, is even the statistics UNICEF, everybody is using are even old data. If it's new data, then I'm sure it will be worse than
what
we have. Because the truth of the matter is, are we really doing anything? I'm not sure. Almost 100, that's infant. Almost 100 per 1,000 live birth. Do you know what it means? That means every 1,000 birth, 71 will die. That's what it means. Congratulations on the birth of a new child. Before 71 of them will be there. That's very terrible. The reasons. A lot. I don't know if I should go to reasons straight away.
No. Before we go to reasons, I would want you to let our viewers even understand what mother and child or neonatal mortality is.
Yes, it's simple. When you talk about mortality, it's talking about death. So when we talk about infants, that is less than 5 years death. Then maternal mortality, what it means is pregnant women or breastfeeding women dying. For that, we also have high number. So it's simple, should pregnancy be death sentence? It's a choice to get pregnant. That's if you really made the choice. So that should not be a death sentence. But technically what it means is, in Nigeria, getting pregnant, if you are not careful, could be a death sentence. That's maternal mortality.
That's really shocking.
That is infant mortality.
Now, for a fact, we understood Nigeria tend to have high in that aspect. I tend to wonder, what are the main causes of maternal and child mortality in Nigeria currently?
Now, let's pick it one by one, because the problem of the mothers will be different from that of the infant. But the truth, some will come together. Let's start from maternal. One is hemorrhage. That's bleeding. Either during pregnancy or after delivery. Of course, to a layman, once you bleed at a stage, technically everything in your body, with every blood you have is wasted. Of course, the next thing is death. So hemorrhage is one important cause of maternal death. Two.
Doctor, can we pause a little bit? You know why? I don't want us to go further from hemorrhage.
Okay.
My younger sister, we once had a scare when she had her last baby. She was bleeding profusely. We didn't know initially. She was in the theater having the baby. We heard the cry of the baby, so we were dancing. Then the next thing, we saw the nurses running, the doctors running, and then it occurred to us that there was something wrong. So I grabbed one of the nurses and I asked. Number one, she said the child had the placenta around its neck. Yeah. They were fortunate to save the baby. The baby was almost choking. Just when they were, after just delivering and getting happy that, they succeeded in that, they noticed that she was bleeding. But to cut a long story short, fortunately for us, they were able to finally bring the bleeding. So what causes bleeding?
No, that's postpartum hemorrhage. That's bleeding after delivery. It can be even before delivery. There's what we call antepartum hemorrhage. That's before. That is, for example, when the placenta is low-lying, because it's placenta previa, there can be abnormal separation of the placenta. Normally what happens is this. It's after delivery that placenta follows. But there are some people, while the baby is still in, there's separation of the placenta from the womb. It causes bleeding. Of course, there's no intervention fast, that baby will even die. At times there can be some infection in the cervix. That can cause, that's common cause. Those are incidental findings of bleeding before delivery. Of course, after delivery, naturally you expect some mild bleeding. But if it now becomes massive, that's what we call postpartum memory. For example, there are times naturally after delivery, some medications are given to contract the uterus. So when it contracts the uterus, all those bleeding vessels will also be contracted, so the bleeding will stop. There are times, we call it uterine atony. That contraction, there's no contraction. So that means the woman will continue to bleed.
Until there's contraction.
Yes, it will continue to bleed until something is done. Then there are times there can be genital laceration, there can be perineal tear, there can be cervical. That's even the common. That's very dangerous. There's cervical laceration. Cervix is the entrance to the womb. For this commoner when it's spontaneous vaginal delivery. They won't know, so they just notice the woman is just bleeding, or they notice that the woman is no more stable. Yes, of course, when they check the BP, they notice the BP is low, which is a quick pointer that there's a bleeding somewhere. So apart from that, there are times if there is coexisting fibroid
with the baby.
Yes, that's if it's a lot of fibroid. Where the fibroid is, there can be poor contraction. That means there will be a lot of bleeding. These are the common. Of course, it could also be. Of course, I will still talk about abortions. It can also be abortion related. The bleeding can also be abortion related.
Can miscarriages too
That's
fall within this category?
Yes, that's one of even the causes of maternal mortality. I just mentioned one, hemorrhage.
Okay, so let's move forward. Yeah, so that's number one.
That's one. Number two is obstructed labor. You see, for that your sister, the advantage is the bleeding occurred in the hospital and professionals were there to handle the case. Just pause and think. If there was no skilled birth attendant there, you will probably be saying another thing now.
Wow.
Now, obstructed labor. Naturally, you expect after some time a woman is in labor, you expect the opening service to start to open, dilate. Then after that, we say it's fully dilated, you expect the baby to be out. At a stage, there are some people, there's no progress.
After days, over days.
Yes. And in this environment, probably they've gone to a traditional birth attendant, as all mission houses, praying is being done, labor is progressing, is supposed to be progressing, but it's not progressing. So there's an obstruction. And once there's an obstruction, something is causing an obstruction. If that is not removed, from there can be what we call ruptured uterus. From the obstruction, of course, it also again goes back to bleeding. That's why the first thing I talked about was bleeding. Yeah. Apart from obstruction, there can be sepsis, infection. This could also be abortion related. Sepsis, of course, once there is infection, what we mean by sepsis is at a stage, the microorganism causing the infection takes over the system, takes over.
While I was in the university, unfortunately, I lost a very good friend of mine. It will shock you. Her father was one of the biggest doctors in Nigeria then, and the mom was a nurse. There were 3 sisters, but unfortunately she fell into bad hands. Didn't tell
Probably
anybody.
got pregnant.
Went to a quack, and she got sepsis. That was the very first time I ever heard sepsis. And since then, I dread a lot of things or some things. That word is one of the words I dread. Once I hear it, I have goosebumps because I remember how a beautiful soul was lost. So tell us about sepsis.
Simply, once a microorganism enters into the system through any way, but most of the time it's probably through the genital tract for the woman. If nothing is done, the simplest treatment for infections, you use antibiotics, specific as needed, as prescribed. Or if nothing is done, of course, the infection will continue to multiply. So when there's an overwhelming infection, that's what we call sepsis. And again, if at this stage you must be at your best with the best choice of antibiotics, good combination, high doses. If that is not done, from sepsis, the patient can enter into what we call septic shock. And at this stage, miracles may now be expected. But again, if you are at your best, you can still rescue this situation.
So what's the next one?
Okay. The other thing is hypertension in pregnancy. Pregnancy-induced hypertension. We used to call it preeclampsia. At a stage, the blood pressure is high. You check the urine, there's protein. If nothing is done, of course, the BP will continue to increase. At a stage, that mother can start to have convulsion like a little child. That's what we call eclampsia. Well, if nothing is done, it leads to death. The other thing is abortion-related death. Abortion is illegal in Nigeria. And so you know what it means. Most of those that procure abortion will most likely go to quacks. And so if that is done, if it's not properly carried out, there's incomplete abortion. And if there's incomplete abortion, that lady will continue to bleed. And if nothing is done, the lady will bleed to death. You know, going back to hemorrhage. Again, apart from that, because of course there is still some part of the baby in the womb. It's just like meat. If you put meat on this table, what happens? Microorganisms will start to multiply in it. If it's on it, maggot will get there. That's exactly something like that. But infections with, that's why that is in the womb. No, maggot will not get there in the womb. But infections, microorganisms will multiply. Then from there, from the incomplete abortion, it leads to septic abortion. Then from septic abortion, we are talking about sepsis if nothing is done. Death. Then because most of the time, probably the abortion is done by a quack, what happens? When they are trying to do it, they perforate the uterus. And once you perforate, then from the source of perforation, there will be bleeding. We are back to hemorrhage again. These are classic 5. Apart from this, limited access to health care. If you are in the city, yes. What about the rural areas? Do you have health facilities there? Another challenge. Do you have health facilities there? For those that have health facilities, do we have skilled attendants there with this JAPA syndrome? How many doctors are available? How many midwives are available? Then we must not also forget the social determinants of health. If you don't have money, because is healthcare free? It's not free. So if you don't have money, you find it difficult to go to the hospital. If you don't have money, apart from what you pay in the hospital, you probably need money for transport fare. Social determinants of health. What's your status? You know, there are some women, they can't even they cannot make decision to take themselves, or even they try to the hospital. There must be express permission from the husband. One, they don't even have the financial backing to even make that kind of decision. Status, social determinants of it. But if you have money, you don't need to take permission from the husband. I want to go. The way I'm feeling, I'm bleeding. Social determinants of health, very important.
Now,
in maternity.
what about HIV and AIDS, and of course, traditional people who patronize traditional medicine practitioners during this time? So I would really want you to talk on those two aspects, how it has increased mortality
no. For HIV/AIDS, with current care, they live normal life. But if it's in those days when there's no care for HIV, yes, it's a major cause of maternal mortality. But currently with care, because any standard place, you are pregnant, they are going to test you. And if you are positive, we are going to be commenced on drugs straight away. But of course, you know, one of the things I said when I was talking about limited access to care, it comes with visiting non-skilled bar attendants. If you are in a rural community, there's no hospital. But these unskilled bar attendants are available all around you. Of course, to you, it's better to go there than not visit any place.
Let's talk a little regarding dieting and poor nutrition, how it tends to impact maternal mortality.
Yes, it can. All those things will still fall under the social determinants of health. Mind you, if you are not eating well as a pregnant woman, that's malnutrition. You will have anemia. That's low blood. Let me simple term, low blood. And of course, that can lead to death. With severe anemia, there can even be what we call anemic heart failure.
For real?
Yes.
During pregnancy?
Yes, once the blood level is too low.
You know, sometimes what then happens to certain ladies, because I know for a fact there are moments where a pregnant woman would want to eat a whole zebra, the moment where all she wants is just a drop of water. Does that, what sort of effect does that have, and how could one really curtail that? And is there more like an excess eating habit for one who is pregnant?
No, you just need to eat healthy diet. Of course, most pregnant women at the beginning, especially for the first 3 months, they may be vomiting, so they take very little. But the second trimester, that's the 3 to 6 months, they are more established. They are virtually doing everything they love to do. Of course, there's an attitude, we call it picker. They can just prefer to take some things that they don't even like before. That's why in this environment, a pregnant woman will tell you, please tell the husband now, I want to eat bean cake made of palm oil.
From the woman 50
yes.
years away.
Are you getting my point?
Only that woman's
yes. Or they tell you, I want party jollof rice.
From Yaris.
Are you getting my point?
So
specific, these are just, although there's no scientific basis, they just at that time,
cravings.
yes, cravings for it at that time. But there's nothing spectacular. Again, they just continue that onto the third trimester. But again, as they near term, of course, a lot of changes may also occur, which can also change their eating habit.
Now, talking about strange cravings. Now, I've seen the strangest aside food. I've seen where a friend of mine would inhale Dettol. I don't know if this has to do with maternal mortality. She had a miscarriage eventually and needed to go for counseling when she had the next baby. We stayed. Then my hairdresser will wake up in the morning as early as 4 and will go to the gutters and stir the gutter and put her head there. She will use the toilet, leave it unflushed, and in the mornings before anybody wakes up, she would go sit down and inhale. She lost 3 babies. I don't know what eventually happened. Before we go on a short break, is there any correlation between these strange cravings to maternal mortality? Because those 2 cases,
no,
they lost babies.
Anyway, straight away, those are abnormal cravings that it's not healthy, even for a non-pregnant woman. And we must always recognize that once a person is pregnant, then you are not dealing with only one person anymore. You are dealing with minimum of 2. You don't even know how many babies are in there. And so there must be, if it's eating, that's nothing special. But this kind of inhaling something that can be injurious, those are bad cravings. And those kind of people may have to see psychologists because it's not normal. They need help. And of course, from your experience, you notice, of course, they lost babies. It's not just telling us it's an abnormal situation because it's not healthy. It will, of course, be injurious to health.
Okay, if you just joined us, you definitely missed the first part of our discussion where we're taking a look at a very important topic on mother and child mortality rate. In fact, children under 5 years, and the Nigerian statistic is alarming. Well, I don't want to dampen anybody's spirit because, as you can see, in fact, the topic is an emotional topic. But we'll take that break. When we return, we'll be taking a look at neonatal or children under 5. Stay with us. Welcome back. It is still Daybreak Africa. We do hope that you run with all that you heard and saw with the Go Start business. It will really help you because it is helping me even as an adult, but our target is the youth out there. So you can start the business where you are with very little money, and of course you'll be glad you did. Before the break, we were talking about maternal mortality. The doctor was able to give us reasons or causes where we have such alarming statistics. But now we want to go straight now to the under 5 or neonatal mortality rate. And before we go on that, I have something that I found while I was researching, and I know that the doctor is going to build on. And again, remember the doctor said that the statistics that we even have now, we can't even bank on them. So if I reel out the statistics and you have something new or better, bear with us. Now, causes of under 5 mortality: malaria 8%, pneumonia 19%, injuries 3%, diarrhea 17%, HIV and AIDS 3%, Malnutrition, 53%. That's for neonatal. Tetanus, 7%. Diarrhea, 3%. Sepsis, pneumonia, 28%. Congenital, 8%. Preterm, 28%. Others, 10 on both sides. It's really heartbreaking to have such statistics, and the reason why we are creating the awareness and wanting our viewers to understand how important this is. So we will want to start on causes of mortality in under 5 children in Nigeria.
Okay, let me just quickly make this to be clear. When you talk about neonatal mortality, when you talk about neonates, it's the first 28 days of life. First 28. The baby is born today. 1 month, that's neonate. After the first 1 month, there are no more neonates. So we need to. So of course the causes are a little bit different. But because we are talking about infant mortality generally, so it's going to combine both neonates and infants. And so straight away, one of the common cause of infant mortality is prematurity. So simple. God has programmed that a term baby will be 40 weeks plus or minus 2 weeks. Because the date, that EDD is 40 weeks. So when a date is given, the woman can deliver 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after. And so if the delivery comes less than 38 weeks, then that's prematurity. Of course, if it's 37, that child is almost term, won't even consider more. But if coming at 28 weeks, 30 weeks, that's prematurity. Why will there be death? Number one, the baby is not prepared for life outside
The womb.
the womb. The respiratory system may not be properly developed. The system is not prepared, and so there can be death. They are not able to regulate temperature yet, so that's why you notice they are placed in the incubator.
Incubators.
Their GI might not be properly, because they are not ready for life outside. That is one. What we call prematurity. Febrile illnesses, for example, common causes, infections that even are common malaria. In pregnant women, if a pregnant woman has malaria, to the doctor it's an emergency. Or if nothing is done immediately, there could be a lot of reactions after. If there's no outright loss of the pregnancy, there can be premature labor. And once the cervix open to an extent, there's nothing you can do. The baby will come out. So one is prematurity. Another thing is infections. From the pneumonia, is another cause of death. 3, possibility of congenital anomalies.
What does that mean?
When a baby is born with abnormality, the baby, there's something, for example, if there's a big hole in the heart
Of the baby.
there are some of this that is not compatible with life. Some are compatible if it's small. but some are not compatible with life. That's what we mean by congenital anomaly. It's abnormality. That baby is born with it. There are a lot of congenital anomalies. That's why doctors will tell pregnant women, especially the first 3 months, be careful of what you take. Even up to medications, you must be careful, because organogenesis, that's formation of organ parts of the fetus, occurs at this time. Little thing will just cause, little insult will cause a break, and the baby comes. So some are compatible, some might not be compatible with life. That's about congenital anomaly. There's another one called asphyxia, birth asphyxia. Naturally, that's why when you see a new baby is born, the midwife is not wicked. We notice we tap the baby because they want the baby to cry. It's not wickedness. At this time, when he breathes with the cry, the lung expands, send oxygen to the brain, everything starts to work. Because if after 15 minutes, after 5 minutes of birth, oxygen is not getting to the brain as it should, that brain will be dead.
Like my mom told me, rest her soul, that when I was born, it was like a stillbirth. I didn't cry. So the doctors were running helter skelter.
And they must get you established.
I came out very black and dark.
Yeah.
Stubborn. The baby refused to cry. So they did everything, and eventually someone said throw her into a bowl of cold water. So it was at that point that the shrill went off and the baby would not stop crying for 3 days. So are you saying it would have been death completely?
No, the brain isn't, some of the mentally retarded people we see today, the insult was on that first day. Because there will be damage to the brain. And it's irreversible damage. Once that is done on that first day.
Now, Doctor, we were speaking behind the scene. You made mention of mass exodus of health care workers, who tend to affect urban settlers. But we know for a fact people that tend to be affected most when it comes to maternal mortality are the rural settlers. And most often they tend to engage in cultural and traditional practices, and sometimes they go into ritual itself. How can we as a people or as a nation currently, I guess I'll have to bring it down to our setting here in Nigeria, how can we try to improve rural areas' healthcare system? And then maybe at some point know how to keep our own so as not to travel off to Canada or America by tomorrow or so.
Well, probably if I think that question will probably come together when we talk about our response, because that must now be a response to this high statistics. It's not only in rural area, even social determinants of health. I may be a bank manager and still visit unskilled traditional birth attendant because of my belief. Social determinants, religion is also part of it.
Is it more like belief or because they tend to get results? Because in the long run, people are not really foolish. People tend to go towards things that actually work for them. So is it probably because it works?
It's belief. Let me say this. For example, if you have 2 CS, if you have had 2 CS to us, to the doctor, they will tell you subsequent birth must be by CS. Why? You have had 2. That means you have 2 injury on your womb. You have 2 scars on the womb. If you try to labor on your own, the scars can tear. So, which you have rupture. And if nothing is done, back to hemorrhage, that person can die. So, to the doctor, we want to try you to try to labor. So by the time the baby is matured enough that can leave, they will ask you to come for elective, planned cesarean section before you fall into labor. But the traditional birth attendants, the Yaoshuns, the churches, will tell you, don't mind the doctor. Which one is better to hear? You can make it. You can deliver. And you need CS. Of course, one is appealing. So of course, a lot will go for the one that appeals to the ear. They can be successful at times. But most of the time, they still rush them back
to the hospital.
Bleeding profusely, probably have ruptured the uterus. At that stage, you are not even thinking of saving the baby anymore. You want to save the mother.
But doctor, we've discovered that in such situations, most mothers are not accepted by the hospital. We've had situations where when this happened, they go to the traditionalist, and when they have issues, they take them to the hospitals, and some hospitals, private hospitals, will turn them away and say, look, no, why didn't you come from the initial stage? We're sorry. Is that right? Or if it is not right, why do some doctors do that?
No,
instead of attending to and saving either mother or child or both.
If you think every hospital, private hospital, knows one, the area of specialty. One good thing about qualified doctor is this: once you see a case and you notice it's above your capability, then the person should go to the specialist he needs to see. But we say, for example, if somebody is bleeding seriously and comes to your private hospital, you know the minimum you can do is establish a line, start giving drip. Because if the bleeding continues, by the time she gets to that place where the intervention will be done, the veins may have collapsed, and it may take time to get them back, and life could be lost during that time. So establishing a line, even if you are not going to eventually manage, but if it's an emergency case, no, this person is bleeding, establish a line, then let them go to the next, a better center that can handle the case.
Now, you were telling us about the causes. We've done malaria, we've done pneumonia, but you didn't really expatiate on pneumonia, because I really wanted to know how. Now, we've not done diarrhea, we've not done HIV, measles, and malnutrition.
Yeah. Now, let's go to diarrhea diseases. Common. Because the body fluids of a child has a lot of fluids. The body of a child has a lot of fluid. Diarrhea diseases, you are passing watery stool. If it's not replaced, the body fluid is depleted. At a stage, that child will enter into hypovolumic shock. If it's not replaced, the next thing is death.
There was a case not too far away from our studio, from our station, and it was a very painful one. It was a male child. and the mom she was lax about it. She didn't even know it would lead to the death of the boy. Unfortunately, they lost the boy, and it was diarrhea. It was so fast,
common,
and it was weak, and the next thing...
It's a common cause of death.
Was it that he went into sudden shock?
No, once they lose fluid and nothing, there's no intervention. And so that's why normally for anybody with a child, an infant, you must always have this ORS with you. At least if you don't know, before you get to the hospital,
you administer.
Be administered.
So that what is ORS? So we can
educate. Oral radiation salt. It's already packed by UNICEF.
Okay, you can get it from across the counter.
Yes.
Aside that, when you have emergency, can salt and water do?
Yeah, you know what's inside is salt and water. So that you know why why we tend to, because a lot of people before now we advocate particular number of cube of sugar. There were a lot of misinformation causing confusing people. So UNICEF came, it's already packed. So get clean water. If you need to boil, cool, add it.
Add what?
Add the ORS. It's in powder.
In powder, you pour it in.
Pour it in, then start to.
But in the house, do we need to add sugar to the salt?
No.
If you don't have that one,
yes.
Is it sugar and salt?
Yes, it's sugar and salt.
So that's the sugar and salt solution?
Yes.
Okay. In what portion? In the normal water bottle? I don't want to call... There's this common popular water in the market. You have the big size and the small size. So in the small size, how many sugar and salt?
We talk about liters. If I'm right now, because we are now used to the ORS, but I think it used to be, if I'm right, I think 1 level teaspoon of salt, and I think either 10 level teaspoon or 8 of sugar, or 5 cubes of sugar. I just need to confirm that.
So you begin to give the child. Okay. So what about measles and malnutrition?
Again, malnutrition now plays a very important role. Not eating well or eating junks. The child will come with protein energy malnutrition. There can be marasmus. They look like, when you see, they look like old man. Or kwashiorkor, they have protuberant tummy, leg swelling. All this, number one. If you are malnourished, you also have low immunity. Your body will not be able to defend you. So of course, you are also prone to a lot of things that can eventually kill. Yes, measles, that's old now. You know what I'm saying? So because of immunization, you see, we have less measles now. And so because there is less measles, so there is less death from measles.
Now I tend to wonder contributions from male folks, or should I say a male spouse, to their wives. Is it more like a belief now, where we believe male have no responsibility whenever their wives or spouse tends to be pregnant? At this point, what will be the responsibility for the husbands, for use that term, for the husbands? What are their responsibilities? What are they expected to do in order to avoid maternal mortality?
It's so simple. If the man is the breadwinner, then number one, make money available to the wife. That even if I'm not around and you have a complaint, go to the hospital. Have you released money for her to register for antenatal care in hospital? These are simple things. Of course, just carrying. When is your next appointment with your doctor? is next week. Next week, the husband, have you gone? Did you go? Don't forget tomorrow is your appointment. Or she told you, it was last week, but you didn't go. Why will I go? Tomorrow, you must go. That's what I expect husbands to do.
Now, when I tend to talk to people as regarding maternal child mortality, one of the first things that comes to mind is family planning services. What's the relationship between family planning services and maternal child mortality?
Okay, both maternal and child. Yes, we didn't talk about family planning because there are a lot of things to talk about. Number one, they call something unwanted pregnancy. Is it unwanted or unintended?
Both.
Are you getting my point? Because the truth of the matter is this: most of the death, for example, from abortions, is because that pregnancy is not wanted. Your friend that you talked about was pregnant, of course.
Couldn't go to a father, couldn't go to a mom.
Are you getting my point?
Two elder sisters.
Are you getting my, because
I was there.
The pregnancy was unwanted. So if at that time she had family planning, he was
Her
using
father
one.
had a hospital, one of the biggest.
Are you getting my point? If she was
sad
on family planning, she won't be pregnant. So she won't procure abortion that eventually terminated her life. That's family planning. That's unwanted. Now, even normal homes, married, we were talking about single, married, you can space. That's one of what family planning is for. You can use it to space pregnancy. This year you are pregnant. You have not even recovered fully. You are pregnant next year.
like Rihanna. We used to kiss.
Are you getting next? You are pregnant.
Oh my
Are
God.
you getting my point? You have not fully recovered before you get pregnant. Again, the baby. You know, you are giving birth on another baby. We expect you to breastfeed, for example, for 2 years. But now you are pregnant, already carrying, you stop caring for that one, you start to, your attention will now be on the one in. So by the time you deliver that, you have 2 babies within the yeah, and that's even now economical. Well, you have, so which one will you take care of? Now you are still on this, you are pregnant again. But if there is family planning, that will not occur. So that is the link between family planning and maternal.
In other words, family planning is essential.
It's essential.
Now, we were talking about prior this, we were talking about data collection in Nigeria. You made mention how data collection is quite backdated, if not obsolete. How can we improve our data collection so as to improve areas that tend to suffer from maternal and child mortality?
I think we need to improve our technology.
Technology.
Yeah. There's what we call electrical medical records. If, for example, if you come to my hospital today and immediately I'm entering it, getting it enters into a server, I can see authoritatively this year, this hospital, we have 10, it's on the system. We have 10 deaths thus far, infant mortality, 2 from this, 2 from this, and this is sent directly to a central server. You see, that's what HIV program is doing all over. The patient I see today is entered into a system. It's seen nationally. It's also seen by CDC and of course seen by the funders. And so if there is a death, we also input it that there is a death is HIV related, the death is not HIV related. So we just need to work on our technology.
So how come we don't have that? What can the Nigerian government do to change this dearth of statistics, not just in child or maternal mortality, across board? We don't have statistics. We don't have a database for anything.
It's government priority. What is the government's priority? Simple.
What would you tell Tinubu if he's sitting down here concerning this dearth of data collection in Nigeria, and our focus being child and mother and child mortality?
I will tell him, His Excellency, one of the major challenge we have all over is that to make decision on anything, you need data. Once you don't have, then the decision you are making is fake.
Shooting blanks.
Yes. It's so important. It's the basic thing. Data. Data determines everything. We just need to work that we need data. There are health record, health information officers all around. We have them all around. Why are we not connected? Why? What is the HIV program doing that Nigeria government cannot do? And you see, as they are doing it in Ondo, they are doing it in Akure, they are doing it on what? They are doing it in Lagos, the same thing. And so straight away, all over, you can say, as at today, this is the number of patients being treated in State Specialist Hospital Ondo. This is the number of patients being managed for HIV in General Hospital Ikeja. You just look at the dashboard.
So as a roundup, what is your final take on this topic? You've spoken about data collection and what the federal government should do. As a roundup, just briefly, what do you have that you've not said that you want the viewer to know?
Well, we need the community. That's everybody, the viewer. We must know that maternal and child health is very important. You can joke with the man, but the infant under 5, if you joke, in minutes, in hours, can lead to death. The same thing for a pregnant woman. So we must take their health as very important and treat it as an emergency at all times.
So you heard the doctor. Before we bid the doctor farewell, over the past 5 years, infant and under 5 mortality rates have remained steady in Nigeria at 74 and 117 deaths per 1,000 live births respectively. At times, mortality levels: one Nigerian child of every 13 born dies before reaching age 1, and 1 in every 8 does not survive to their 5th birthday. That is the gory information, unfortunately, that we leave with you as we round up on this segment of Daybreak Africa. We want to thank our guests for being on the show. We have been speaking with our guest, who now is a friend to the house. He is Dr. Olubusayo Modupe, is a medical practitioner, Director of Health Insurance Schemes, State Specialist Hospital Ondo, and Project Coordinator HIV Program, State Specialist Hospital Ondo. Thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure.
And of course, you do have a great time ahead. I remain Ezekiel Ogar.
I am Anire Binitie. Thanks for watching the show. See you again on this beat. Stay safe. Bye for now.